Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. The first words that tore through the cabin weren't mine. They were hers. "Arrest him!" The scream bounced off the wooden walls, shaking the air like a storm about to break. Two uniformed officers stiffened behind her, caught between authority and confusion. She was dressed in an expensive white suit, polished shoes tapping against the hardwood floor as if she owned every board beneath them. In her hand, a stack of papers waved wildly, each sheet stamped with the fake authority she used to bully neighbors. Her finger jabbed at me, trembling with rage, while I stood calm in my red plaid shirt, refusing to move. I looked from her to the officers, and then to the quiet woman by the fireplace. Navy suit. Hands folded, eyes sharp and watchful. She hadn't spoken a word yet, but I knew her presence was more powerful than anyone realized. Karen, the self-declared queen of the HOA, smirked like she had already won. "This man is trespassing. He's violating community codes. He doesn't belong here. Arrest him now!" The officers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flickering between me and her. Even they weren't sure if what she was saying was legal, but Karen's voice carried the kind of fake certainty that made people hesitate. That was her power. She made lies sound like law. I raised my hands slowly, not out of fear, but to stop the tension from snapping. "I live here," I said evenly. "This is my property. You don't get to decide that." My voice didn't waver, though my heart beat like a war drum. For weeks, Karen had been posting notices on my door, claiming I owed fines, claiming the land wasn't mine, claiming I had no right to park my truck in front of my own cabin. She pushed every limit, and tonight she thought she had her grand victory. But she didn't know the truth yet. The woman in the Navy suit finally spoke, her tone low but commanding. "Before anyone makes an arrest, maybe we should confirm who actually owns this cabin." Her words cut the air like a blade, and Karen froze for the briefest second. She didn't expect resistance from someone she couldn't intimidate. Her eyes narrowed and her voice rose higher, shriller, more desperate. "He's lying. He forged papers. He's a fraud." She slammed the stack of fake documents onto the table beside the fireplace, scattering them like confetti of corruption. The officers glanced down at the papers, then at me, waiting. I didn't flinch. I had something Karen didn't. Not noise. Not threats. Proof. "You picked the wrong man to frame," I said quietly. Karen's smirk faltered. The fire crackled behind the woman in navy, and for the first time, the officers looked less like Karen's allies and more like men trapped in her game. The room grew heavy with silence, the kind that presses down before a storm breaks. And I knew. This was only the beginning. Karen leaned closer to the officers, her perfume sharp, her words sharper. "Why are you hesitating? Do your job! He doesn't belong here." Her voice cracked like a whip, forcing pressure onto the two men who were supposed to uphold the law. One of them shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable, while the other scratched at his neck, avoiding my eyes. I stood tall, refusing to bow to her fake authority. She thought fear would make me crumble, but fear had no place in this cabin. Not after everything I'd already survived. She slammed her palm on the table, sending one of her fake notices sliding onto the floor. The bold red letters read, "Final Eviction." I bent slowly, picked it up and held it between my fingers. "Funny," I said, calm but cold. "You typed this on a home printer. No seal, no signature, not even legal." I tossed it back at her feet. "You can't just make up laws, Karen." For the first time, the officers exchanged glances. Doubt flickered in their eyes. Karen noticed it too, and panic danced behind her painted smile. She raised her voice higher, desperate. "He's dangerous. Look at him, he's trying to threaten me." She pointed wildly, but the room was quiet enough to hear the crackle of the fire. The woman in navy leaned forward slightly, her gaze steady, her voice cutting through the chaos like steel. "Dangerous men don't stand calmly while you scream at them." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. She was losing ground, and she knew it. That's when she went for her cruelest card yet. "If you don't remove him right now, I'll have his truck towed and his cabin padlocked by morning. His family will be out in the cold." Her words hit like a punch, and even though I didn't flinch outwardly, my jaw tightened. She had crossed a line. Threatening me was one thing. Threatening my family was another. I took a slow step forward. The officers stiffened, hands brushing the edge of their belts. But I wasn't aiming for them. My eyes locked on Karen's, steady, unbroken. My family has lived here longer than you've even known this place existed, I said. And if you think for 1 second you can scare them out, you'll find yourself standing against more than just me. The firelight flickered across the navy-suited woman's face as she rose from her chair, finally stepping into the heart of the confrontation. Her calm voice carried more weight than Karen's screaming ever could. Before you make another threat, Karen, she said, perhaps you should explain why the county clerk's office has no record of your so-called HOA. The room went dead silent. The officer's eyes widened and even Karen froze. Her hand, once clutching the stack of fake notices, trembled. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. Her mask of confidence cracked. And in that silence, the truth began to take shape. Karen's face twisted, her lips parting as if to fire back, but no sound came out. For once, her mouth, her most dangerous weapon, had failed her. The officers stood frozen, their loyalty dangling between the noise of her orders and the weight of the navy-suited woman's calm authority. I could almost hear Karen's thoughts scrambling, searching for another lie, another fake paper, another trick to keep her power intact. Finally, she snapped. "You don't know who I am," she shouted, voice rising so high it cracked. "I run this community. I decide who stays and who goes. If you defy me, you'll regret it." She jabbed her finger at me again, her rage bubbling over. But her words landed weaker now. The more she screamed, the more she sounded desperate. "Interesting," she said, almost to herself. "Because last I checked, communities don't run on forged documents and fake threats. They run on law, real law." Her eyes flickered toward the officers, a silent reminder of where their duty truly lay. The taller officer cleared his throat. He said carefully, "Do you have proof of your authority here?" "Actual proof? Signed by the county?" His words were hesitant, but they hit like a hammer. Karen's face went pale. She clutched her stack of papers tighter, then tried to shove them into his hands. "It's all here! Every violation, every notice." He flipped through the papers quickly. The silence grew unbearable as he reached the last page, then let the entire pile slip from his hands back onto the table. His jaw tightened. "These aren't legal documents." His voice was low but firm. Karen's eyes widened. She stuttered, stepping back, her power unraveling with each second. "No, you don't understand. I have the authority." Her voice broke, and for the first time, she looked smaller than the role she played. I stepped forward, my boots echoing on the wooden floor. "Authority?" I said, my tone sharp but steady. "Authority doesn't come from a printer in your living room. It comes from truth. And the truth is, this cabin has been in my family for generations. My father built these walls with his own hands. And you thought you could walk in and take it with paper lies?" Karen's gaze darted to the officers, then to the woman in navy, and finally back to me. Panic burned in her eyes, but there was something else there, too. Rage. The kind that doesn't die easily. She wasn't done. Not yet. Suddenly, she yanked her phone from her purse and pressed speed dial with shaking fingers. "If you won't do your job," she hissed at the officers, "I'll call someone who will." Her voice grew sharper as she stepped aside, pacing. "Yes, this is Karen. Get over here immediately. Bring the team." She paused, shooting me a venomous glare. He won't be standing much longer. The officers tensed again, their unease obvious. I didn't move, because deep down I knew who she had just called. And if she thought fake papers were her best weapon, she was about to make her biggest mistake yet. Karen's voice rose higher, sharp enough to cut through the walls of the cabin. She waved the fake eviction papers like a sword. "This property is under HOA control. You can't live here anymore." I stood my ground, the firelight flickering across her furious face. "This is my land," I said firmly. "You don't get to steal it with a forged piece of paper." Her eyes narrowed and she snapped her fingers. 2 men in uniform stepped forward. Their badges glinted, but something about their posture was off. Too casual, too sloppy. Karen smirked. "Arrest him now." For a second, the room froze. Then I asked calmly, "Which department are you with?" The taller one hesitated. County Sheriff's Office." His words stumbled, like he was reading from a script. The second man shifted nervously, avoiding my eyes. Claire's voice cut through the tension. "Sheriff's Office?" She leaned forward, her tone razor-sharp. Funny, I am the sheriff's office. The fake cop stiffened. Karen's face drained of color, but she tried to recover. Don't listen to her! She's lying. Claire rose slowly, her presence filling the cabin. Impersonating an officer is a federal crime. You just made this worse than you could imagine. The fire popped, echoing her words. The two imposters faltered, their bravado collapsing. One of them muttered, Karen, you didn't say she would be here? Her lips pressed tight, her plan unraveling in front of everyone. She stammered, Arrest them too! They're useless! But it was too late. The cracks in her power had spread wide enough for the truth to pour in. I leaned closer, my voice steady. This isn't about rules. This is about you thinking you're untouchable. Tonight you just proved you're not. Karen's scream rattled the wooden beams. Do something! Don't just stand there! But her fake cops shifted uneasily, caught between fear and the authority radiating from Claire. Claire stepped closer, her tone steady. Enough games. You forged documents, you brought imposters into this cabin, and now you're trespassing. Karen threw the papers at me, her voice cracking. This is my neighborhood! I make the rules! You're nothing without me. The words stung, but only for a second. I picked up the crumpled paper, holding it under the firelight. The ink bled where the seal should have been. This isn't law, I said. This is fraud. One of the imposters tried to slip toward the door, but Claire's eyes caught him. Sit down. Her voice was so sharp he froze mid-step. The other man looked like he might faint. Karen's fury twisted into desperation. You think you're so clever, but everyone here sides with me? I built this community. I shook my head slowly. No, you built a cage and called it community. You bullied people into silence. But cages eventually break. Her face reddened, her voice lowering to a hiss. If you won't leave quietly, then I'll destroy everything you care about. The threat hung heavy in the air. For a moment, even the fire seemed to go silent. Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. I stepped closer, my voice calm but unshakable. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. You turned this from an argument into a confession. The imposters exchanged a panicked look, realizing Karen had dragged them into something far beyond what they signed up for. Claire's words landed like a gavel, and that confession is exactly what I needed. Karen's mask cracked, and panic slipped through. She pointed at me, her voice sharp but trembling. He's dangerous. You need to get him out before someone gets hurt. But nobody moved. The imposters stayed frozen, their nerves unraveling. Claire folded her arms. Watching Karen unravel with the patience of someone who knew the ending already, I stepped forward, slow and steady. Dangerous? The only danger in this room is you. You forged papers, dragged in fake cops, and now you're trying to twist the truth. Karen's eyes darted, searching for control she no longer had. I'm protecting this neighborhood. Without me, it would collapse. I shook my head. Without you, it might finally breathe. Her lips trembled, but she doubled down. I'll call real police. I'll tell them you assaulted me, that you threatened my life. They'll believe me. Claire stepped closer, her voice cutting through like steel. Funny thing about lies, they crumble when there's evidence. She tapped the small camera on her lapel, its red light blinking. Everything you said is already recorded. Karen froze, her bravado bleeding out. The imposters glanced at each other. Realization dawning that they were part of a crime now sealed on tape. I leaned in, locking eyes with her. You wanted power so badly, you forgot the truth always fights back. The fire cracked loudly, almost as if it agreed. Karen opened her mouth to shout again, but nothing came out. Only silence. For the first time since she stormed in, she looked small. Claire's voice was calm, final. This isn't your stage anymore. It's evidence. The room seemed to shrink as Karen's world collapsed. Her hands shook, her voice breaking into fragments. You can't do this to me. I built this place! I decide who stays, who leaves. Claire didn't even blink. Not tonight. Tonight the law decides. Karen lunged toward the fireplace, maybe hoping to snatch the papers back, but I stepped in her path. She stumbled, caught between rage and fear, the firelight painting her face in flickers of red and gold. The imposters finally snapped. One raised his hands, shaking his head. I didn't sign up for this. I thought it was just a noise complaint. The other muttered, She told us she had clearance. We didn't know. Claire seized the moment. You both have a choice. Walk out quietly as witnesses, or stay and get charged alongside her. They froze, guilt written all over them, then slowly backed away from Karen. Her eyes widened, betrayal hitting harder than any punishment. Cowards! You'll regret this! But it was over. She was cornered, and for the first time she knew it. I spoke softly, almost like pity. You ruled with threats, but threats only work until someone calls them. Karen tried to scream again, but it came out as nothing more than a broken whisper. Claire pulled out her badge and held it where the firelight caught the shine. Karen Whitmore, you're under arrest for trespassing, forgery, and conspiracy. The cuffs clicked around her wrists. The sound was sharp, final, like the cabin itself had breathed a sigh of relief. The cabin fell quiet except for the crackle of the fire. Karen struggled against the cuffs, her fury fading into ragged breaths. The imposters kept their heads down, ashamed to even look at her. Claire gave a signal, and the officers moved in. Take her out, she said calmly. The metallic snap of the cuffs echoed like the last nail in her empire. Karen twisted her neck toward me, her voice weak but venomous. You think this ends me? Without me, this neighborhood will collapse. Claire shook her head, her tone calm but sharp. No, Karen. Without you, it might finally live. The words landed harder than any punishment. Karen froze, the fight draining out of her. For the first time, she looked small, just a woman, not a ruler. The officers led her toward the door. She dragged her feet, muttering, "This isn't over." But the truth was written in every face in that cabin. It was over. I turned to Claire, exhaustion giving way to relief. You knew she'd pull something like this, didn't you? She allowed herself a faint smile. They always do. People like her think control makes them untouchable. But the law always catches up. Outside, the lake reflected, the moon like polished silver. Calm, untouched, by the chaos that had stormed. Through the night. I whispered, more to myself than anyone, funny thing about fights. The real ones aren't won with fists. They're won with truth. Claire paused at the door, glancing back. Her look said it all. Justice had been served. The cabin was mine again, my refuge restored. I sat by the fire and let the silence wrap around me. She thought she could own the law. Tonight she learned the law owns her. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.